大丈夫。ユッキーがユノが守ってあげる。
This absolutely choice waifu is what first sold me on anime all those years ago. But since then, the show has built up a reputation. Was Mirai Nikki really all that trashy? Well, yes, but also no. It's time to go back. I will never forget my first anime. 13 years old, my friend's birthday party, hanging out, smoking churros, snorting pop rocks, you know, as you do. The TV's on, but no one's watching. Death Note comes on, my friend Silas says, hey, that's Death Note. Everyone goes back to their churros. Except me. My stupid friends were all really loud, and I was like, shh, are you not fascinated by this sorcery? And they all just stared at me for a second before, going back to their churros. But after finding a fan sub on the internet and the manga in the library, I forgot all about anime. That is until my first year of university. Playing StarCraft, smoking churros. Then, one day, I was like, hey, is there anything out there like Death Note? And there it was. It was violent, it was sexy, and it made me feel things in my pee-pee part place. And the ending, oh my god. Oh, we'll get to the ending. First, if you're for some reason not at all familiar with Mirai Nikki, let's sum up the story real quick. God, named Deus Ex Machina, LOL, is dying and decides to choose a successor with a 12-person battle royale death game. The hook is that every player gets a diary that predicts the future based on their personality and the diary they were keeping before entering the death game. For example, the terrorist gets the escape diary, which helps her escape any situation. Yuno, the pink-haired Yandere, gets the Yukki diary, which updates everything Yukki does every 10 minutes, and the main character, Yukki, gets the observer diary that just records everything around him because he has no character or personality whatsoever. The concept is pretty novel, or at least it was back in the day, but the story is honestly pretty bad. But it's also amazing, and I mean that for real. Let's start with the bad, aka the characters, and in particular, the protagonist, Yukiteru. He's literally the worst protagonist ever in the history of anime, and culprit number one for this show being low-key trash. His personality is basically wah wah I suck in human form. He's so annoying and terrible that it's actually an accomplishment in bad writing for him to suck like this much. There's the Couple Diary, which gets all its strength from them working together. They serve as like a foil to Yukki and Yuno, where Yuno just makes every single decision for him. This I don't get. Like, what kind of story uses a foil to show how terribly written their characters are? Like, and you'll miss this if you only speak English because his manner of speaking doesn't really translate properly, but Yukki is actually twice as annoying and childish in the original, if you can believe that.
でもお腹減ったもん。
And sure, it's cool to have your main character be a pathetic sack of shit. That's every isekai ever, but the problem with Yukiteru is that he literally does not have any agency at all in the story. Ever. It's super pathetic, but what's more pathetic is that this is apparently on purpose. I mean, his personality is not having personality and just letting other people make decisions for him. That's why he has the observer diary. All of his decisions are made by someone else. All of them. Like, when he chooses to shoot someone, it's because the detective brought him in hoping he would shoot someone so that he could use the detective diary against him. And it's like, wow, Yukki acted exactly like he was hoping he would. Wild. Near the ending, it looks like he's finally able to take some initiative for himself. Turns out, he was literally following a script that Yuno wrote for him. Any decisions he seems to make for himself are actually just some combination of someone manipulating his actions and him blindly following his diary. This is probably the biggest unintentional flaw in the writing, along with the very intentional flaw of him being a pathetic sack of shit, because all he ever has to do is read what his diary says. Instead of being this cool, empowering psychic tool, it just takes away any agency he would have had if he had something else, because he's just again following a script. So he literally never has to make any of his own decisions and instead just goes with the first suggestion given to him, usually but not always by Yuno. Like when his father stabs and kills his mother, his dad apologizes, so Yuki's like, oh, we can just start all over together and it'll be okay. Like, how are you going to start all over? Your mom's dead and he's the one that killed her, dude. How did you forget this so fast? So then at the end, when he's finally able to win the death game, you know what he does? You know what he does? You know what he does when he becomes literally God with infinite power? He sits there feeling sorry for himself for another 10,000 years until the Yuno from the third iteration of the game literally cuts through time and space with an axe to rescue him. Even when he becomes God, he cannot do anything but sit there and wait for someone else to make decisions for him. I think the problem is that the author is clearly capable of writing better, but somehow got the idea that this is what people want to see. Like, there's all these ham-fisted attempts at philosophical concepts like free will and stuff that are mostly just ripped from better stories like Evangelion. Akise is basically Kaoru. He's the gay love interest, except his character is pretty non-existent and he's just gay for Yukki for like some reason. And then it turns out he's not actually a person, but instead a robot created by Deus Ex Machina, again LOL. And when he finds this out, he decides he wants to be his own person. So Deus is like, alright, show me you have free will and I'll let you live. So he's like, okay, I did this thing. Nope. This other thing. No, that was me. Okay, I love Yukiteru. Lol, no. Okay, what about this? I have one of the fake future diaries. Oh, I guess you have free will now. Basically, the author was trying to copy Evangelion, but he's a way shittier writer than Ano, so he only understood the surface level things like some pathetic dipshit, check, a bunch of hot waifus, obviously, check, an incoherent gay pseudo love interest, check, 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 of course, it's what the people want. The other problem is that all the trauma and daddy issues that Shinji had all just went to Yuno. Yuno is actually fairly competently written, which is probably unsurprising given she is like, you know, the reason that people watch this show. So Yuno is a reasonably deep character, but she's also kind of fucked up because, you know, Yandere waifu is, despite being, you know, the Yandere waifu, we actually get a pretty good understanding of her character and how she got this way. Her parents were extremely abusive. Her mother has this mental disability which results in her getting more and more unstable and abusive as time goes on. This takes a toll on her father, who is always working and starts being home less and less because of his mentally ill wife, who is busy starving their daughter and locking her in cages. Eventually, Yuno, malnourished and delirious, snaps and puts them in the cage because she wants them to feel what she's been going through. Instead, they both end up screaming at her more and calling her a useless sack of shit, and so she accidentally ends up letting them starve and die inside the cage. But this isn't where she snaps, because after that, she goes through the survival death game with the one person who ever truly loved her, Yukiteru, and then has to lose him at the end when she kills him in order to become God. This isn't where she snaps either, because instead of accepting that reality, she uses her god power to restart the world and go through the survival game again, which means killing her alternate self and taking her place. This is where she snaps. Having to kill her own pathetic, depressed, and delirious self drives her over the edge, and she becomes the Yandere waifu we all know and love today. Like, please step on me, am I right? So, Yuno is actually fairly well written, but any good writing put into her kind of goes out the window in order to make room for the waifu fan service that is her entire character. And that's a real shame, because none of the other characters are nearly as well written as her, especially not poor Mr. Yukiteru. Again, calling him the worst protagonist ever is an exercise in understatement. There's these characters who are just various versions of batshit insane, which the story uses to play out into this violently incoherent mess. And while this kind of works for Yuno, I say kind of, but let's be honest, it really does, because she's the entire reason anyone ever watched this ever. The rest of them are mostly just insane for the purpose of being insane without very many layers. This is kind of infuriating because the author is clearly better than this. Like when all the fake diaries activate and everyone in the city gets their own future diary, Mao's diary is basically useless because the only thing she's been recording is the size of Hinata's tits. Like, that's fucking hilarious. Please step on the like button for anime titties. Or the Couple Diaries backstory is honestly great. They were both abandoned children and he took care of her until one day he couldn't. It's nothing revolutionary, but it's definitely competent. And then there's shit like Terrorist Girl, who is just so transparently tsundere that it hurts. She's this edgy terrorist, but she's also in love with the handsome detective character. She has more going on later in the story, but 90% of her character is just edgy tsundere. And that's the other main problem with the show. Basically, every character is just random anime stereotype with wrist-cutting levels of edge, except for Yukki, who is instead wrist-cutting levels of anime stereotype. So the characters range from cool, insane waifus to pathetic dipshits to more or less competent side characters. But how does the story itself hold up? This is kind of hard to evaluate because on one hand, it's this absolutely batshit insane psycho murder battle royale with some choice waifus. But on the other, it tries to convince you that it's a psychological thriller, a slice of life, a rom-com, and basically every other anime genre literally all at the same time, generally also in the same scene. It's one thing to have a lot of different elements making up a show, but Mirai Nikki is straight up inconsistent most of the time. Like there's this one scene in the hospital where they're running from the detective, then they somehow get caught by the terrorist character, and it turns into this goofy scene where she puts her tits on Yuki's head. Then it gets to some serious stuff with her backstory, and then she does the fucking anime eating thing, and it completely kills any pretense of seriousness this scene had going for it. And then before you can facepalm, Yuno goes and does the exact same thing, and it's like the number of tone shifts in this one scene is enough to give any weeaboo some serious whiplash. But also the mystery prevailing throughout the show is extremely well written and definitely enough to keep you hooked through the ending. In the third episode, Yukki stumbles upon the locked room in Yuno's house where her parents' bodies are. And so it's like, who is she and what does she know? Does she know things? Let's find out. And then it introduces the mystery of the third body, which drives up the mystery all the way to the ending, which is, to put it frankly, fucking genius. The ending is seriously well written. I went over it briefly already, but basically, this is the second iteration of the death game. Yuno won already and then went crazy and reset it and plans to live the rest of her life in an infinite loop of death games and happy endings. So then when they erupt into the third iteration of the game, Yuno traps Yukki in some pocket dimension, but then he breaks out with the power of his love for Yuno, which convinces her to stop this murderous rampage, and then she kills herself so he can become God and put an end to this insane cycle that she started. This is such a good mystery and conclusion that it carries the train wreck of a protagonist all the way to the ending, like one of those meat sack weightlifters pulling a train. Like, Jesus fucking Christ, that's impressive. Okay, so all this being said, what is the King of Weeaboo's final call on Mirai Nikki? Well, honestly, it's worth a watch. The parts that are good are honestly fucking amazing, and the parts that are bad, well, they're honestly pretty unforgivably bad, but some of them, a lot of it is like, you know, the kind of bad that you can grab some pals and some drinks and laugh at, so it's honestly not even that bad. It is. Thanks for watching this episode of Weeb Jail. If you'd like more big brain breakdowns on all of the animes, I've got my 5-head playlist right here. Please step on the like button, and as always, I'll see you next time, friends.